All right, so we are now live.
Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Excited to be with you all today. We had a great guest on, and you know what? I should explain with the stubble and the little green around here. I mean, I'm in costume today because we're talking about a really important topic, nature. We're also live streaming, so live streaming across LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. That's the next generation of podcasting. What you're going to see is a chat box. Please post your comments in chat. We'll share it with our guest once we bring him on, Mr. Reino Gevers. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. So I'm going to actually share a screen with you here, everybody. All right. If you're on the podcast, you'll hear me, but if you're watching video, I would usually introduce the guest, but I'm going to actually read off his website a few things. He's written this. He says, I believe that it's our destiny as human beings to grow and become who we are truly meant to be. We're never done. Life is not meant to be an easy ride. On the path of life, trigger points such as divorce, loss of loved one, financial ruin can elevate you to a higher consciousness or leave you stagnating in melancholy sadness or grievance over that which was and is no more. The true calling often lies in the wounds of the past that have sculptured us into human beings that we are destined to become. When reflecting on the past, it often becomes obvious how the pain and the obstacles that we have had to overcome gave us skill set needed to fulfill divine purpose. If I go down a little bit more on his website here, you'll see that he says, I see my role as an author and mentor primarily in providing the tools that have helped me in my own process of dealing with the challenges and ups and downs, the journey of life. I'm going to stop there. You can obviously see his academics. He's got a Bachelor of Arts. He's trained leaders and achievers for 10 years, author of several books. We're going to talk about his newest one today. Lot to this man. So everybody, welcome to the screen and the podcast, Reino Gevers. Reino, welcome.
I'm so happy to be on your show, Tom.
It's great to have you here. How does it feel when somebody reads about you as you're waiting to come on? Is it humbling?
It is humbling indeed.
I know we don't usually get that, and I was thinking the theme of the show today is this concept of nature, and I'm thinking in nature you have a lot of time to reflect and think about yourself. I want to start off with something real fun to challenge you a little bit, so we're going to share something on screen here. Before I do that, I just want to do a quick check-in. Is there anyone in your room that's typing or doing something on a keyboard?
It could be by my dog in the background.
Okay, that's your dog. All right, so we'll edit, leave this in. That's good. The reason why I do that, everybody, we're live. It's like this is what it looks like in studio, so we'll be making this perfect. I love it. Is there any way you can show us your dog? Probably not. You can't really.
Well, here we go.
All right. What's his or her name?
Well, it's Clara.
Clara.
She accompanies me on all my walks. She's an old lady. She's 12 years old.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But still very fit and healthy.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you. Clara, we love to have you there, and that makes the show real and authentic. It ties in. So I'm going to present something on the screen here, and we're going to take a look. So just stand by right now when I pull this up. Hang on a second. And I'm going to go to share my screen here. Everyone, what you're seeing me do in the studio is we'll pull up several elements today to have some fun with Reino. So here is one of my favorites. Just hold on. I got two screens working here, so we're going to share this. All right, so here we're going to add it. Before I add it on, I want to take the audience back to a moment in time. I found this little gem of a video. Right now, we're going to watch it together, and then I'm going to have you tell us what you thought, felt, and what it makes you want to do. So here we go. So let me just add this. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear the sound once I start it.
There have been many remarkable people I've met on the Caminos I've walked. They were a real inspiration for my book, Walking on Edge. One of the persons I met on the Camino Francis some years ago said to me, you know, I've come to the conclusion that there's a big difference between problems and difficulties in life. Problems mainly being events, circumstances out of our control, while difficulties are mainly in the mind. This is why the masters of old actually asked the universe to be confronted with difficulties to fine-tune their training. An interesting thought. So many of the pilgrims walking this path have gone through life-changing events like loss of a job, very serious illness, or the loss of a close family member. And after taking this walk, they do go home different, with a different perspective. I think that's a lot what this is about.
Okay, let's remove
There've
that
been
from the
many-
screen here. Just hold on a second. Take that off my screen. Make sure I can get my mouse to do that. Okay. Hold on a sec. Remove that. All right, sir. Well, all right. So putting you on the spot. That was about a minute, everyone. Tell us, where were you? When was that? What was going on?
Oh, that was about 3 or 4 years ago on the Camino Primitivo. I was walking through a forest, and this thought came to mind that, the universe wants us to push boundaries. And through going through these difficult moments are, in fact, a blessing. And I had a wonderful conversation on one of my first walks with an American pilgrim who gave me these wise words. He said, so much of our time is spent pondering about difficulties that aren't real problems. A real problem is if you have a life-threatening disease, if you face a life or death moment. Most of our time is really all about difficulties.
Wow, that's fantastic. How did that emotionally hit you when you watched that video? Because I didn't tell you I was going to put that up. Where were you? What, if we were to label your emotion, there's joy, sadness, anger, happiness. What did that evoke in you?
Especially going through that forest, you go within. There are so many fantastic recent studies on how these green and blue spaces in nature reduce your stress levels, your cortisol levels, and that opens your mind to so many thoughts and opens not only your mind but all your senses. Your sense of smell, of feeling, of the aroma in the forest. You feel at one with the universe. You don't have those moments if you're in the daily rut of going about life. We need those moments of solitude, of quietness, to be able to listen to the whispers of the universe. What is the universe trying to tell us? We don't need those hard moments of suffering if we really put our ears and our eyes close to the ground and open our soul to what the universe wants us to become.
That is, I just got to say, in the teaching moment right now for the audience, you had me right back into that forest just with the way you explained it. My understanding too, going through a brain injury in 2018 and still working through some of the issues with mental health, is cortisol for me is a big deal. I learned what you said, and I learned also, everyone, that cortisol, while it's good to have cortisol, it puts you in fight, flight, freeze, right? Right? That response. If you're in the forest and you see something in the bushes moving, it's your body's natural smoke alarm to say, go on alert, Tom. I want all your senses to be on alert to figure out, is that danger or is it okay? Cortisol is meant to, smoke alarm I call, is meant to go on and off. But if it's on all the time, it can actually inhibit or block the flow of dopamine and other healthy chemicals that give us happiness. So Reino is such a gift today. He's really taught us something there, everybody, when you come back and see this. I want you to hold up your new book. We're going to give a shout out for that. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm going to full screen you for a minute and just read the title out to us.
It's the turning of the circle, embracing nature's wisdom for purposeful living.
All right, thank you. You can drop that down
Yeah.
now again. Everybody, Reino Gevers is the author of many books. This is his latest book, Turning the Circle. You just heard. I also want to say something to you before we get into that, and that is, you said something about life is about challenges, and I think even referencing illness. And I want to dedicate your words to a good friend of mine. I'm actually going to the hospital after this, and I'm going to show him this tape. He has terminal cancer, and right now he's in palliative, and so you understand where his journey is. But he's remarkable. He's spent his whole life learning about things like meditation and being able to use other forces, including nature, to work his way through that. So thanks for saying those comments to us. We're going to have you go to work again. Do you ever do author signings or author readings? Sometimes people want you to read your books.
Well, I've done quite a few online, very few that I've actually done on location, because since COVID, the whole industry has changed, and I haven't really done many readings in front of a live audience. It's been more this type of interview that I've done.
Well, there is always a first.
But coming back to your dear friend, life only stops when you actually give your last breath, your last out breath. You come into the world with an in breath, and you leave the world with an out breath.
Thank you.
And there's a wonderful saying from one of the wise teachers of old, that we are everlasting souls having a human experience.
Wow. Everlasting souls having a human experience. Actually going to, I got my other camera on here. I'm writing that down in my book here. So everlasting souls, human experience. That is a teaching moment, everybody. What we're going to do now is we're going to feature our author, Reino, and put up on the screen here. Voila. I love your book, and I got the Kindle edition because I have some vision challenges, so I like to listen to it read to me. So here we go, everybody. We're going to put him on the spot, and you're going to do a little author reading for us. The way this is going to work, Reino, and for those listening to the podcast, they can't see the screen right now, is you will either turn to the pages in your book, or you perhaps read off the screen here. I've highlighted it. When I ask you to start, just read naturally. And it's a couple pages, and this is something you wrote at the beginning of your book. So I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you to just take us through. I'll turn your page for you once you get to the bottom. So over to you.
Okay, I think just give me that page number. And
sure. Okay, it's in the Kindle book. It's page 11 of 164. It might be off sync with your book, but it's right at the very beginning. And this would be, everybody, we're live here with the author of Turning the Circle. This is Reino Gevers. We're going to do a little author reading for you here, and he's turning to that in his book. I believe it's
the pages are different, so I'll read it from the screen.
Okay, or we can let you find it if it's more comfortable. We can edit this, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, I can read it.
Okay.
The Western mind has a need to achieve, show success, divide and conquer. Be it on the open sports field or in the conference room. Similarly, Western medicine approaches illness or disease as a battleground where a virus or bacteria needs to be eradicated by all means. Scars of the battleground are accepted as a necessary part of the territory. We need only think of chemotherapy or other medication with major side effects. In traditional Chinese medicine, the approach is entirely different. The main difference reflects itself in the mindset of the physician. This person lets go of the belief that he or she is the healer. They realize that the healing quality is inherent in each one of us. Illness and disease are approached holistically. There is a deep realization of the many aspects an illness might entail. Sometimes it might be necessary for a deeper meaning or healing process to reach fruition. In its own time, And at a much deeper level, no outsider is really in the position of truly understanding all the mechanisms at work in an individual.
Let's pause you there so we can just have a dialogue around that. So, just generally tell us about what you've read there. What inspired that? What are you trying to teach us?
Look, I've had quite a few friends and family members, including my own mother, who died at the age of 48 from cancer. So cancer has followed me all throughout life, and we are so quick in judging people
Yeah,
and
yeah.
saying, well, you didn't do enough self-work, or it's as a result of that you got this disease. I think we are really small players in the whole scenario. We don't know when our day has come. And every life-threatening illness or every accident as such that throws us out of balance is a very complex field that only the individual can really explore and find meaning
Yeah.
for.
Thank you.
So we shouldn't, as outsiders, be judgmental.
I appreciate those words, everyone. We're hearing from the author of the book, Turning the Circle, Reino Gevers. He's doing an author live reading for us online. So if you can continue there, I think we're starting at We Are Moving. Just read us that next part.
We are moving in a complex field with the 5 elements where every situation has its specific facet and background. Every element has aspects of the other and can swing into the polarity of yin and yang. Reflection in crisis situations is of the utmost importance. What have I learned from this? How can I improve? What am I taking with me into a new cycle of growth? What are my priorities at this moment? These questions are important steps on the eternal ladder of growth and healing that is the soul's path. Living according to the natural laws of the 5 elements means living with the cosmic forces of nature. Resistance to the elements means that they will inevitably turn against us. Stagnation and resistance lead to imbalance and disease. The elements require a constant willingness for adaptation and change, while at the same time, structure is necessary for stability and orientation. The tradition was embedded with all those people who lived nearby and in harmony with nature, and of course the seasonal cycles. Great respect was given to timing and expressed in elaborate ritual. There was a time to plant, a time to harvest, and a time to rest. This is still applicable today, even though the necessity is clouded by the demands of modern life and its luring distractions. Modern man has severed his ties to the natural order of things in the mad striving for material wealth and prosperity. Cut off from his spiritual roots and the natural order of things, he is filled with a deep sense of loneliness and fear, which seeks compensation of that void in boundless greed and substance abuse. His greatest fear is the fear of change. Now you'd have to scroll up a bit.
Okay, sorry about that. Seeking, I'll just help you out there. Hold on, everybody. We'll be editing this to make it pretty. So you fear of change. Okay, his greatest fear is the fear of change, seeking to find solace in a comfort zone. This inevitably leads
to standstill and stagnation in a situation where the comfort zone turns out to be all but comfortable. Still, it is defended because change is perceived as threatening the status quo. Fear of the unknown and building mental walls against the tide of change is the real reason behind the growing political radicalization in many countries. In reality, change means freedom and empowerment. The willingness to tread the path of change in the five elements requires courage. It is a real opportunity to grow and follow the soul's true destiny of spiritual evolution and tasting from all the sweetness and abundance that life has to offer.
That's wonderful. Everybody, let's get you to hold up that book again there, Reino. Just hold it up. We're with Reino Gevers, the author of The Turning of the Circle. He's been just doing a live author reading. Thank you, Reino, for showing us that book. You can put that on. I got to tell you, man, I'm being selfish here, but everybody's getting a treat. You don't know how great it is to hear an author reading their own words, to know that you've written that. It's a blessing. So the last couple passages you read, just tell us a bit about what the thinking was around that and how that applies to, turning the circle in this thing about nature and, purposeful life.
Yeah, we have to go a bit into the whole philosophy of the five elements, starting with the springtime of life, which is associated with the so-called wood element, the time when the seeds are planted, also the seeds of thought and ideas. You go into the next season, which is the summer, the fire element, when the plants start to grow. But you, of course, have to tend to your fields. You have to extract the weeds, and you can't just leave them to lie. And then you go into late summer, which is associated with the earth element. That's the time when you harvest your crop, the time to reap the rewards of your efforts. You go then into the autumn period, the metal element, and then the winter period of life, the water element. And each cycle, each element, of course, is also associated with a pair of organs in the body.
I see. Can you tell me about the origins of this learning? I think originally you're from Africa, is that right? Or
South Africa, yes.
South Africa.
Well, this five element philosophy is very much based on Chinese Taoist philosophy, but we have very much part of the same philosophy in all our cultures, because you have to remember that our ancient peoples, our ancestors, lived within nature. They were very much connected with nature because it meant life or death. You needed to know when to plant your crop at the right time. If you planted your crop too late, you missed the rainy season and you would die of hunger. And you needed to time the time for harvest just as well. And you needed good storage for your crops in winter, not to deplete your crop and leave enough crops to plant for the next season. The turning of the circle, it's always circular. And a process you can imagine it as a spiral, going upward. You start and it turns a circle going spirally upward, and you can see that on the cover of the book. There's a spiral from a seashell, which is very symbolic. You find the spiral symbol in all of nature. You find this. You can find it in the universe. If you look at the Hubble telescope, you find the image of a spiral in the universe, in the macro and the microcosmos. And this is so fascinating as you delve into how chaotic on the one hand, but also how on a higher level, everything in nature is connected in some type of cosmic order.
Wow. It's so fascinating, everybody. Again, we're here with Reino Gevers, the author of his new book, Turning the Circle. You're in Spain, is that correct? You live there?
Yes, I live on the island of Mallorca. And I moved to Spain largely because of my walks on the Camino, my pilgrimage walks on the Camino, where I really fell in love with this country, with its people, and of course with its nature, its wonderful nature and its climate. But the past few weeks we've had massive storms here on the island. There's actually literally no part of the world where you can escape the dramatic change in our climate.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing globally with the fires, the storms, the hurricanes, the floods, is a reflection what's happening within,
Wow.
with us humans within on a consciousness level. We can't separate ourselves from Mother Earth. We're all part of Mother Earth. The earth is a living being, and our whole body substance is made of earth elements. Once we die, all the elements go back to the earth, and we inhale and exhale part of the earth every second.
Wow.
And so if we want to solve the environmental crisis, if we want to solve our mental health crisis, our physical health crisis, we have to do the work within. There's no way out of it. We have to do the self-work, the self-reflection, and the spiritual work of reconnecting.
Yeah.
There's a wonder. Just one last thought.
Yeah.
There's a lovely passage in the book of Genesis. It says we made in the image of God. The whole of nature is an expression of God's creation, just as we are.
Absolutely.
But we've separated ourselves from the world outside.
Thank you. Wow, it's fascinating. I've just been madly making notes here, everybody. Rhino's teaching us so much. I wrote down, do the work within, solve physical, mental crisis. Just going back to my own story, I fell in a bathtub on my head and had a concussion, serious brain injury. I have some visual issues still. But going through this whole journey, I turned to a lot of what you're teaching us today, including the Bible, which I believe is written as fables and stories to help us understand how to love and to look after things like our fellow man. Also understand that connection between us as beings and the planet. Funny you said what you said, because we are experiencing this, and I know for our guests we're an international audience, but Reino, I'm here in Vancouver, the West Coast, Canada, where we get we're on the Pacific Rim, so we get the warm currents from as far as California. We've seen the horrific things that have happened in Lahaina in Hawaii, which was where my wife and I went 28 years ago for around that time for our honeymoon. I got to tell you, my daughter's on the other side of the country called New Brunswick. It's one of our other provinces. So I'm British Columbia, and she's over there in fourth year university, and I miss her. And she is doing fourth year environmental engineering, and she's totally about the planet. And she's very vocal about how we have to look after the planet and this impact. I just woke up this morning and looked on my phone, a weather thing about New Brunswick being under alert for Hurricane Lee and tropical storms. I mean, this is ridiculous. That part of our country, we don't see that type of weather. And then if you study what's going on in British Columbia, it's been one of the worst seasons for fire ever in our province. Our province is full of lush forests and things. You'd love it if you came and hiked our trails. Much of it burned throughout. We've had heat waves and all of this. So I think I want to ask you something evocative, because I believe in my faith, that, you think that sometimes when we see all that happening too, if we believe in people who believe in faith, that, maybe God is angry with us, that, we heard of the floods and the things that were done before, but there seems to be so much of this. Is this a wake-up call for the planet, and perhaps is it from a higher power?
Well, I firmly believe that God is pure love, and this is not God showing his anger. It's a result of human action.
I see.
What we're seeing is a result of human action, our own actions.
Yeah.
And we can't blame God for that.
Yeah. No.
We tend to do that. We tend to blame the higher entity for what's happening.
Yeah.
But a lot of our world at the moment is, in fact, out of balance. Why? Because for the past generations, we've extracted and we've exploited the Earth's natural resources. We're all talking about climate change, but that's just one part of the problem.
Yeah.
Many species are becoming extinct. our rivers are polluted, our air is polluted. This is all a result of human action, of our greed, of our incessant addiction to immediate gratification.
Wow, I wrote down that word just now, everyone, greed and instant gratification. That is so true about our species. And it's interesting how, going back when there was no internet, when there was no social media, now you can get access to everything like this. And before, what were we doing right now when we wanted to pass time? We were outside walking in nature, enjoying what you're teaching us. I want to go back to your bio bit, and everyone. Rhino came on my show just recently, a while back, and talked about one of his other books. What was the book we were talking about before? Do you remember? I think just pick one of them.
Yeah, that was my book on deep walking for body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
A compilation of many of the conversations I had with fellow pilgrims on the Camino pilgrimage route in Spain. And of course, that book again turned into the latest book I wrote, because, of course, you have intense experiences while walking for days and weeks in nature.
So everyone, I just want to jump in there for a minute. Everybody, you can go back and find the first show, and Reino takes us through the actual walk. Just from some refresher here, how long is that walk, and how long does it take somebody to do? And it goes from where to where?
If you do the traditional Camino Frances from Jean-Pierre-Le-Port in France, that starts on the foothills of the Pyrenees Mountains.
Yeah.
And then it takes you about 5 to 6 weeks to do this 500, 800 kilometer walk through northwestern Spain. It's an ancient pilgrimage route going back many centuries.
Wow.
And there's even legends that the Celts used it as a path of ritual in pre-Christian times.
Yeah. I don't think I told you this, Reino, but between the last show and today, I found it was on not Netflix, but the documentary, and it was filmed with a whole bunch of pilgrims or taking that pilgrimage walk. It was breathtaking, and everything you told me, I remembered you back. I'm so proud of you and what you do. I read somewhere in your notes that you try to do one pilgrimage work, one walk a year. And so how many times have you done that one, the El Camino?
Well, I've done more than a dozen now.
Oh my goodness.
And I've had some really deep experiences. There was one particular experience I had on the Camino Primitivo in the mountains, where I started my walk early in the day, and I had a bad night. I didn't sleep very well. It was raining that morning, and then I broke through this cloud cover, and I looked down from the mountaintop, and I saw this beautiful blanket of clouds beneath me. And those are moments where you feel very close to that boundary between the here and the world beyond.
Yes. Amazing.
Those are deeply spiritual experiences where you feel at one with the higher deity.
I have to say that the story that for everybody who you need to get this man's book and read it. I ask you also to write a review on Amazon, Goodreads.com. See, authors aren't known for their work until we tell people, and then people read our books and post reviews. I'll be giving you a 5-star review for this new book. I gave one for the others. What we're seeing on the screen here, everyone who's seeing the video, is we're seeing his Reino's Amazon page. There are actually 4 books there, so you can see the deep walking one, which was just unbelievable, and the new one. Such a beautiful cover, by the way. It really draws me in with that green. So I'm going to remove that from the screen now, but everybody go after the show to Amazon and get this book. I'm going to mention something that I admire you for, and that was in your first interview. I always bring people on, as you know, and ask for the hero's journey narrative. And I don't have people on if they're showing up with their chest pumped out and telling us how great they are. You're not like that, my friend. But you went through this whole change in your life, which led to burnout and things like mental health challenges. That led you to doing some things differently. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. I was at a point in my life where I had health problems.
Yeah.
I had marriage problems. I wasn't feeling fulfilled at all in my work because I was in the media industry at the time, and because of the digital revolution, there was enormous cost cutting, staff retrenchment, and so forth. And I was right in the middle of these negotiations, and I reached a point where I decided, look, something's got to give, and I read Paulo Coelho's book, The Pilgrimage. He wrote this book in the early 1980s. And, there are books that change the trajectory of your life. And that was one of those books. So I read that book in one night. And a few days later, actually, I booked a flight to Spain from Germany. I was living in Germany at that time. And I did not the full Camino. I did 120 kilometers, but I was in bad shape. I was physically and emotionally in bad shape. So I had the worst shoes you can think of. I had a bad backpack, and I ended that walk with blisters, a sore back, and but something happened. I met an Australian pilgrim. That was shortly before the end of my walk, who said to me, well, the Camino is all about walking things off.
Wow.
And
I love it.
And there's so much truth to that, because the body kind of acts like a recording system. It stores all the trauma and the events you went through life, and I sort of had an inkling of this, and the following year I did the whole route over 5 weeks.
Amazing.
And that's when things really changed.
Wow.
I had like lucid dreams. I had memories going back to my early childhood, things I'd completely suppressed in my subconscious mind. And as I sort of, and you go through really emotionally deep times.
Yeah.
You're really at the bottom with physical and emotional pain.
Yeah.
But you have to go through that to experience that turmoil, that inner turmoil, and then, well, there's this saying amongst pilgrims: you have to go through this path of crucifixion, then through the valley of death, and then you go through the redemption and the resurrection, and that's when you've walked most of your things off, and you get that clarity. That absolute clarity, and that the clarity that I got was, you got to leave the marriage you're very unhappy in. You got to leave the job that's no longer satisfying. You got to change your life completely. And I did that.
Yeah.
It was a difficult process, of course, especially if you leave a relatively safe job. And I became self-employed. The first 3 years were difficult. It culminated, of course, in a new life here in Spain. My partner, Sarah, I met on the Camino 4 years ago.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I gotta jump in here, and my heart's warming, and I'm so proud of you. I love your story, and what I see as a stark difference in a man, even the vibrancy out of you. I remember you when we talked before. You were still in that journey. And I don't remember, I think it's when I interviewed you last time, was it after I had my brain injury? I think so, right?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
I had done a TED Talk in 2020, 2 years after, but I fell in a bathtub on my head and cracked the tub, actually, and sustained so many injuries. Couldn't walk straight, couldn't speak, I still have double vision, so you look great in twos. And I now have photophobia, by the way. I'm really proud they call me Bono. I have to wear these glasses. I can't process the light. So what happened was I was doing the Ride for Cancer, 225 kilometers over 2 days, up and down hills, sun and rain. And the first night, what wasn't part of the plan was that fall in the tub that cracked a hole in the tub and really just changed me for life. And they said if I had fallen even a little bit one way, what happened, Rhino, is my legs went out and I broke my fall with my head. I literally 185-pound man, the full force on your head. I landed on the top. It cracked the surround of the tub, but the back here where the vision center is in my brain, it actually cracked the lip of the tub, and I blacked out. My wife came in and found me there. This took me on another El Camino in my mind. And it was interesting because most people don't hear the rest of the story because I don't want to dominate, but I'm going to share it for the sake of telling stories. That night, I didn't think I didn't think I could do the next leg of the ride, which was 110 kilometers. But I remember I was in bed. I didn't sleep. I was leaning against the headboard. My head was pounding, and I didn't know I was brain injured. I just never had a concussion or anything. And I had a single thought, and the single thought was people who have cancer have to fight forward. They don't have a choice. And everything I'd learned from reading your book, which, and I'm not saying this for ego or anything, but reading the book you gave me, Deep Walking, to all the things I'd learned as a CEO turned executive coach who had to really go find myself. So like you, I gave up a 6-figure job. I was in this distress, pain. My life was just not where I wanted it. I got up the next morning, got a bag of Tylenol, got back on the bike, and over 7 hours finished my El Camino, the second 110 kilometers. It was raining. I had glasses on, and I think I was doing this a lot. I don't know if there was tears from the pain or if it was just the rain, but here's my medal they gave me. And whenever I look at this now, Reino, I this is now my El Camino. It anchors in me that I did this despite. So here's my message to you, that what you're teaching us here is life-changing. And everyone, I always sometimes have this thought that, what if I had known a lot of what we've learned through your work at the beginning of my career, earlier in life? How would that have changed the trajectory of life? But there's one thing for sure about nature, and I'll finish with this, that when I slipped into depression, I had my first suicidal ideation, and it scared the hell out of me. I fought against getting psychiatry, but I now have a psychiatrist on my care team for the last 3 years, and it's amazing. You got to get one. And one of the things I learned in cognitive behavioral therapy, Reino, which is cognition is your thoughts, everyone. Behavior is how they behave, and you can actually change the way they behave and the meaning of them, is if I'm stressed out with anxiety and whatnot, they call it one of the skills is do a happy distraction. And on the top of the list was walk in nature. And then I started studying brain science, and I started learning about alpha, beta, and in our current state, like right now, we're in this beta brainwave state where our thoughts are going crazy. You can't remember what I said just 2 minutes ago because you don't hold the thoughts. You just push, they're coming and going. When we're in that state, we can't tap into that, what's almost like an alpha state, the slowest brainwave. It's almost an unconscious state. It's in that state, everyone, that we can focus on one thing only, maybe our breathing, maybe the sounds of nature. And it's in those states, and especially in deep sleep and rest, I've understood, where we start having REM sleep and we untap into dreams, which makes us a better human being because we unlock a lot of the things Reino told us he went through. What my learning from you, sir, and what I've just tried to articulate in my own way, coming together in these fortuitous intersections in our lives, is that if I didn't take in nature, and close to where I live, there's trails. It's called the Burrard Inlet, and I can see a body of water that if I put a boat in it, it would take me out to Asia, the Pacific Rim. When I go out every day on my walk, my friend, everything just disappears, and I get to this almost Zen state where I can hear and tap into all these inner feelings. And I've made some huge decisions while on that walk. Decisions to let things go. Decisions to not take things personally. Decisions to feel that I'm a good person, not a person that the voices in my head tell me some days. So thank you for bringing this and letting me be vulnerable with you and sharing that. And on that note, I'm going to honor you by bringing a special little segment I'm starting on the show today with you. It's called Plato's Garden. You see that image there? I know we've disappeared. But this is an image of Plato and Aristotle in the garden. And this garden is somewhere near Athens, so I'm going to present another screen here. Plato's Garden, also known as Plato's Academy, was an ancient philosophical school founded by Greek philosopher Plato in 387 BC, located in the grove of trees in the suburbs of Athens, Greece. The exact location of Plato's Garden is not known with certainty today. It was situated in an area that no longer exists in an original form. It was a close proximity to the city of Athens. There's another little thing there. It says the philosophical school of Plato, this is really cool, academia with a K, was the name of the garden where Plato originally taught, named after the hero Academos. So now we know where the word academy comes from.
Wow.
So we're
Yeah.
we're going to just turn on a little sound effect here. Oh, wrong one. And we're going to enter into Plato's garden now, and we're going to give 5 minutes where I'm going to be asking you an evocative question, but we're just going to be in the garden learning, and it's going to start with sharing another short video. It's about 2 minutes, so just stand by here. One of the things I'm excited about is, I didn't tell you, but I've started my doctoral at Middlesex University in London. Think about this: a guy who can't see properly, who's had a brain injury, is accepted for this. It's been a dream, and it was the injury that led me into that doctoral. And this is one of the fellows I just learned about. His name's Tim Ingold, and he's an archaeologist. He's also done some incredible work in academia. And he's got a concept here. I'm going to play it. We want to watch it together, and then we're going to just talk. So you ready for that? Okay, so here we go. Just give me a thumbs up if this sounds okay.
The presentation I'm going to give at the conference is called Humanifying in Practice, Looking, Listening, and the Education of Attention. So I start with this word, humanifying. The conference word is humanizing. And I want to make a distinction between humanizing and humanifying. And it corresponds with a distinction you might make between becoming human and human becoming. Humanizing is becoming human. And the problem with that is that there's some notion of what being human is, and an idea that perhaps small children, when they come into the world, are not quite human yet, so they have to be humanized. They have to be given this essence of humanity that turns them into human beings. So that one might say of the baby or the small child that it is becoming human, and eventually will become human, and that is the process of humanization. Now, I want to turn that on its head and say that humanity, what we being human is a task. It's something we do. It's not as though it's a finished state that we could say, right, we started off with some raw material and now it's humanized. Rather, we continually make our humanity as we go along. And in that sense, humaning, making ourselves human, is a task that all of us carry on all the way through life. And that's what I mean by humanifying, and as such, it's a task that we have continually to work at. And the thing about tasks is they're, of course, things you do, but they're also things that fall to you to do. So that by virtue of being thrown into this life of ours, the one thing we have to do is to carry on with this task of making ourselves and making others, this task of humanifying. So that I want to argue that what we do, everything we do, is contained within or encompassed within what we undergo, and what we undergo is life. Social life is something that falls to us, that we undergo, but we do things within this process of life.
I'm just going to take that back off the screen there. So let's have a conversation. We're in the garden here, and maybe I'm Plato and you're Aristotle. In the lens of the work you've done, and back to that little conversation we had, I'll just maybe throw this in that, it's kind of interesting that humanifying is actually almost like throwing us into life to learn before we become. Talk about what that video means in the scope of your life and your work.
That is such a nice term to describe it, humanifying, because we never done, are we?
No.
When we think we've learned something, when we think we've got it now, then the universe comes with another lesson.
That's right.
I had a conversation with a fellow pilgrim who said to me, if you think you can do the Camino like a sports event, the Camino will humble you.
Wow. You know what? That is so true, my friend, because when I was telling you about the ride to cancer, I've never ridden 225K on a bike, and it humbles me. It humbled me. Let me jump in. Can I conversate with you in the garden here? One of the thoughts I had was about both of our lives. If in some way I was born a little boy, and I was told to become human. You got to become this. My dad used to say, you got to do this. You got to get good grades. You got to go and get good career, etc. So it's almost like this thing I had to become. I sometimes wonder, based on what he said and what we've talked about, what would have happened if I had thrown myself into the garden of life more, and instead of becoming this thing that I was told to be, I had gone and explored in the garden and learned about life. If at a young age somebody had introduced me to walking in nature, where I could be in touch with my thoughts, my soul, and I could start listening more to maybe some of that universal intelligence out there, I sometimes wonder if that would have shaped my life differently. Would I have been a high-pressure CEO who burned himself out? Or would I have had tools to do things to not burn out? Or would I have ended up over here versus 20 years later discovering I wasn't placed where I should have been in my life? It's a fascinating. Tell me what you think about what I just said.
Yeah, interesting topic, because we all have those thoughts. I have them too. I asked
Yeah.
myself, what would have happened to my life if I had stayed in South Africa in 1980 and not left the country, because the country was then ruled by apartheid, as you know, and not come to Europe and opened myself up to completely new experiences. I think ultimately all is destiny, and when we are born, we are on the trajectory of becoming who we are meant to be, and we go through these life experiences. We go on a walk through this garden of life, and we encounter these experiences, and some of them are quite traumatic.
Yes.
And some of them involve illnesses or accidents or simply events out of our control. But the lesson, I think, of all these events we go through life is, do I remain stuck in that trauma, in that sadness, in that melancholiness over that which is no more? I mean, your life is not the same now as it was before you had your accident.
Yes.
It's different. But what can I make of life in that difference? And looking forward, taking that step forward. They say in Spanish, paso a paso, take each step at a time. And
I love that.
Don't look back. Just walk forward.
I like that saying. Say that again to us.
Paso a paso. It means take it step by step.
That I love that. I'm gonna coin that phrase and use it next time I see somebody where it resonates. Actually, today when I go to the hospital to see my friend Hattie, we call him Happy Hattie. He's the terminally ill fella. I'm gonna say that exact thing to him. I'm gonna show him this. One more thing before we leave the garden, and that is, in some of the work I'm doing in the doctoral, and again, I've just started, and I'd like to stay connected to you to actually have conversations, because with the way I think now and some of the limitations, this would be a gift to me. Is one of the things academia do a lot better, I think, than business people, and I understand this and agree with it, is critical thinking, criticality, which is, for example, we have a dozen eggs. In business people, it's like 2 and 2 equals 5. My professor, Kate McGuire, who's overseeing my program, and I shout out to her, thank you for this Plato's Garden, that why is a dozen 12? And what are we thinking and what do we feel when we take 6 of the dozen and turn it into creation, into an omelet? Or why do we create 6 eggs into an omelet versus a frittata? Where does that come from in our lives, where we value what an egg is? Who taught us that? Should we challenge our beliefs about eggs having high cholesterol or not? All these critical thinkings, right? And I think that happens when you get into the garden and you slow down and you start having thoughts about your thoughts and you reflect. So this is my last question to you before we leave the garden, my friend. And that is, many people like you who have these challenges with life, as you've taught us in your amazing story, don't do what you did. they don't seek, they don't go on the pilgrimage, they don't try to find out the hidden meanings, they don't create books, they don't put them out there in the world and take the responsibility to teach others. And when you do that, you're trusting that your work has integrity, that whatever you've learned, how you've learned it, now you're putting it out to change other people's lives. What made you, what is it about you that had you take that stuck point in your life and do what you've done with it? I'm curious.
Yeah, there was an insight at some point where I realized that we are all here to serve in some way or other.
Yeah.
You're not here for yourself. We are here to serve the bigger whole.
And where did that insight come from?
If you teach, it was this sense of community I felt on the Camino with fellow pilgrims, where at some point I realized, well, I am the product of so many things, so many influences, so many people that influenced me through my life, so many teachers that, so many books through which I gained knowledge and insight. But you have to teach, you have to bring that message out into the world, because if you don't, it becomes all stale. And of course, even this conversation we're having here now, I'm learning a lot.
Me too.
I'm gaining new insight, and I hope some of our listeners do too. And that's what it's about. We're in a process of evolution, of growing all the time.
That's amazing. That's why we're in the garden. So everybody, we're going to say goodbye to the garden here. Just going to put an image on the screen here, Reino, as we leave Plato's garden. I'm making this shit up as I go along, pushing buttons here and there, and I know people are going to have fun with this.
But isn't the garden such a good analogy?
It is a great analogy. And just what came, wouldn't it be fair, for me, it's fair to say that what came out of that 5 minutes of conversation was rich learnings, the things you said and even evoked in me. That I can see why we should go in nature, and even walking the Camino talk, and that's our garden.
Yeah, a garden is diversity, and that is one of the key principles of creation, is diversity. Many flowers, many plants, many species, many thoughts, many ideas, all coming together, but all somehow interconnected.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. I have to tell you this quick story because I riff in my mind really quickly. There's a place called Butchart Gardens, which is on the Vancouver Island. You take one of our super boat ferries over there, and we used to go there growing up as kids, and it's this massive acreage, and it's all developed into beautiful gardens. So you'll have the Japanese garden, and you'll have the gardens of Australia, and you'll have the gardens of different places in the world, cultures. And they have horticulturists and people looking after it. It is brilliant. And it maybe takes you, if you walked all the paths and all the gardens, each section you go into, almost like Disneyland when you go into Tomorrowland or you're going to Never Never Land or whatever, brings you into another country, another world. And so my wife and I were there, and we walked into this one garden, the rose garden, and there was thousands of species of roses. I've never seen anything like it, right now. And you had to go through all these paths, and you were mesmerized. And they had these little signs on each rose, and there was a rose there. My wife stopped and she said, "Tom, come here, look." And she pointed, and it was a rose that was named Anna Livia. Anna, and then Livia, Livia. And I opened my eyes. You wouldn't know this unless I told you, but my wife's name's Anna, and her only sister is Livia. And there's in this garden, there's an actual rose with the two of them together. And what's significant is Anna misses her sister. She lives far away, and Anna's over here. And here we are in this walk through a garden, and we find this rose that has the two of them together. And so we've been searching to find the origin so, they can grow it and whatnot. But it's one of those things in the garden where two people connected through, I think something you had said, I forgot the word, where they became one. It was just amazing. Yes. So thanks for letting me share that with you.
Yeah, what a wonderful story. Yeah.
Now, as we go to wrap up here, I'd like to have you hold up your book again. Everybody, we're with the author. Tell us the title out loud again. Just put it on screen there.
It's The Turning of the Circle, Embracing Nature's Wisdom for Purposeful Living.
Yeah, isn't that a beautiful cover? Thank you, Reino. You can put her back down there. Everyone, I'd like you to, again, a shout out to order that book wherever you get your books, on and offline, Amazon, and then read it. And I really encourage you to post a review so we can get Reino's work out there on Amazon or Goodreads.com. And before I give it back to you for the last word on the show, I want to read you some words that I've written down here. Just gonna, see be in my other cam in the studio. So I write these, as you know from the last show, these are words, leadership words I think of, not scripted as you're speaking. And so there's 4 of them. The first one is heroic. Things that you're doing, even with a new book, are simply heroic. To me, a hero is somebody who goes in the unknown, seeks and learns and brings back and shares with the world, doing to help people be heroic, help people make shifts and changes. 2 is wisdom, man. I don't do realize you look like Plato some days with the swampy hair. Wish I had your hair. But you are wise, and the difference they say between knowledge and wisdom is time. Man, you've got that. 3 is nature. I call you nature now. You are to me just a picture of somebody who resembles nature, the natural part of all of us. And the last one, I said this last time to you, is love. It continues to come from you when you're speaking. I can see that coming out of you, just in the way, even when I said a story about my personal story, you look to me like I'm the only person in the world that matters in that moment. And so thank you for that. So let's give it back to you now with your last word, whether it's about the book, where to get it, anything at all, before we move to wrapping up.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Tom, and for your wise words. Ultimately, we all connected. We interconnected as human beings from different nationalities, different races. We are the same. We have the same needs, feelings, emotions, and we are also interconnected with nature, which is a part of us. And I hope that more of us contribute to this evolution of consciousness in humanity.
Fantastic. What great words, everybody, you heard here from my guest today. He'll be back again, I know, Reino Gevers, with, I'm sure, another book. But find that true purpose as you've seen he has, and he's done it through that turning the circle, the full circle, and understanding nature. Live that purposeful life, and the one that you deserve and desire. And we'll see you all again on the Quiet Warrior Show. Thank you, Reino, for being here.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca